words of our Divine Mother from the book The Mother, Question and Answers of 1955, Volume 7, page 275. Mother reads from the Lights on Yoga, on Surrender and Opening. And then the Sadhak has a question here. Sweet Mother, when we concentrate on one of your photos, there are many photos, each one with a different expression. Does it make a difference for us, the one on which we concentrate? For this, our Divine Mother says, if you do it purposefully, yes, of course. If you choose this photo for a particular reason or that other one for another reason, surely it has an effect. It is as though you are choosing to concentrate on one aspect of the mother rather than another. For example, if you choose to concentrate on Mahakali or Mahalakshmi or on Maheshwari, the results will be different. That part of you which answers to these qualities will awaken and become more receptive. It is the same thing. But somebody who has only one photo, whichever it may be, and concentrates without choosing this one or that, because he has only one, then it is of no importance which one it is. For the fact of concentration on the photograph puts one in contact with the force, and that is what is necessary in each case for everyone who responds automatically. It is only when the person who concentrates puts a special will with a special relation into his concentration that it has an effect. Otherwise, the relation is more general and it is always the expression of the need or the aspiration of the person who concentrates. If he is absolutely neutral, if he does not choose, does not aspire for any particular thing, if he comes like this, like a white page and absolutely neutral, then it is the forces and the aspects he needs which will answer to the concentration, and perhaps even the person himself will not know what particular things he needs, because very few people are conscious of themselves. They live in a vague feeling, they have a vague aspiration, and it is almost unseizable. It is not something organized, coordinated, and willed with a clear vision. For example, of the difficulties one wants to know or overcome, or understand the capabilities one wants to acquire. This usually is already the result of a fairly advanced discipline. One must have reflected much, observed much, studied much, in order to be able to know exactly what he needs. Otherwise, it is something hazy. This expression, one tries to catch it and it escapes. Isn't that so? And then another child is putting a question here. Sweet Mother, here it is said, one can relax and meditate instead of concentrating. For that, our Divine Mother says, it is not I who said it. Good. So, you need the difference between meditating and concentrating? For that, the child says, yes, Mother, because when one meditates, isn't there a concentration of the consciousness? For that, our Divine Mother says, meditation, there are all kinds of different meditations. What people usually call meditation is, for example, choosing a subject or an idea and following its development or trying to understand what it means. There is a concentration, but not as complete a concentration as in concentration proper, when nothing should exist except the point on which one concentrates. Meditation is a more relaxed moment, less than concentration. When one is trying to understand a problem which comes up, a psychological problem or a circumstantial problem, he sits down and looks at and sees all the possibilities, compares them, studies them. This is a form of meditation, and one does it spontaneously when the thing comes up. When one is facing a decision to be taken, for instance, and does not know which one to take, well, ordinarily one reflects, consults his reasons, compares all the possibilities and makes his choice more or less. Well, this is also a form of meditation. Now, there is another form of meditation which consists in a concentration on an idea and concentrating one's attention upon it to the extent that that alone exists. And then this is equivalent of a concentration, but instead of being total, it is only mental. Total concentration implies a concentration, says our Divine Mother. Total concentration implies a concentration also of all the moments of the vital and the physical. The method of gazing at a point is a very well-known one, so it is even physical. You see, one's eyes are fixed on this point and one does not move any more, nothing more. One sees nothing, does not have his sight from that point, and the result usually is that one ends up by becoming that point. And I knew someone who used to say that one had to pass beyond the point, become this point, to the extent of passing to the other side, crossing the point, and that then one opened to a higher regions. But it is true that if one succeeds in concentrating totally on a point, there is a moment when the identification is absolute. There is no more any separation between the one who is concentrating and the thing upon which he is concentrated. There is a complete identification. One can't distinguish between himself and the point. This is a total concentration, while meditation is a particular concentration of the thought, a partial one. For this the child says, "Sweet mother," the opening, "Sweet mother, for not thinking at all." For that the Divine Mother says, not thinking at all is not easy, but if one wants a perfect concentration, it is essential that there are no thoughts anymore. For that the child says, "Is there a relation, sweet mother, between concentration and contemplation?" For that the Divine Mother says, there can be always a relation between everything, but usually one means by contemplation a kind of opening upwards. It is rather a state of passive opening upwards. It's fairly passive form of aspiration. One makes this moment rather than something opening in an aspiration. But if by contemplation is sufficiently total, then it becomes a concentration. Yes, it is not necessarily a concentration. Then the question by the child, "Sweet mother, when it is a concentration, then the part which concentrates, concentration is limited, or rather," for that the mother says, "a concentration is essentially a limiting one. One cannot concentrate on several points at the same time. It is no longer a concentration." "No, I mean during a contemplation," says the child. For that Divine Mother says, "No, you just said that it is a limited concentration. A concentration is necessarily limited always." Then the child has another question, "Sweet mother, sometimes one feels a silence but feels himself outside his silence or the silence. Why is it like that?" For this mother says, "One feels a silence and then in things," says the child. "No," says our mother. "If you in your consciousness reach a state of silence, you perceive your state of silence everywhere, but others don't necessarily perceive it. You perceive it because you are in that state. It is the same as with those who become aware of the divine in themselves. They see the divine everywhere, but others are not necessarily conscious of it. It is because you have entered into that state and you are conscious of the state. You are conscious of it wherever it is, and in fact is everywhere, somewhere not superficially and outwardly, but inwardly." For this the child says, "Sweet mother, one feels that one is outside the silence, that is not in me." For that mother says, "That one is outside the silence? Then one is in the noise." I don't quite understand what. For that the child says, "I mean that the silence is in things but not in myself." For that mother says, "Probably because you are more in things than in yourself at that time. It means you have become aware of the silence more outside yourself than within yourself." And then the child says, "Sweet mother, sometimes it happens that one was not ready for a meditation or a concentration, and then suddenly one is forced into something and obliged to be silent. Even if one wanted to get out, then one can't. You remain like that, sometimes for a long time, absolutely carried away by the things. Does this enter the category of meditation?" For this mother says, "This simply means that one suddenly comes under the influence of a higher force which is not conscious. One is not conscious of it. One is conscious only of the effect but not of the cause. That's all. There's nothing more than that. If you're conscious, you would know what makes you silent, what makes you meditate, what kind of force is entered into you or acts upon you or influences you and puts you in silence. But as you are not conscious, you are aware only of the effect, the result. That is the silence that comes into you." Then the child says, "But one can become conscious, sweet mother, can't one?" For that the Divine Mother says, "Of course, fully. But for this one must work a little within oneself. One must withdraw from the surface. almost totally. Everybody lives on the surface all the time, and for them it is only the other things, the outer things, the surface. But when something compels them to draw back from the surface, some people feel that they are falling into a hole. There are people who are drawn from the surface, suddenly feel they are crumbling into an abyss. So they are very unconscious. They are only conscious of a small thin crust, which is that they know of themselves and things and the world around them, and it is so thin a crust. Many I have experienced, I don't know how often. I tried to interiorize some people and immediately they felt that they were falling into an abyss. And now this is absolute inconscience. But a fall into something which for them is non-existing, this happens very often. People are told, sit down and try to be silent, to be very quiet. This frightens them terribly. A fairly long preparation is needed in order to feel an increase of life. When one goes out of the outer consciousness, it is already a great progress. And then there is a culmination, and that when there is one obliged for some reason or other to return to the outer consciousness, it is there that they have the impression of falling again into a black hole, or at least a kind of dull, lifeless, chaotic mixture of disorganized things with the faintest light. And all this seems to be so dull, so dead, that one wonders how is it possible to remain in this state. But this is of course the other end, unreal, false, confused. So shall we try to enter within and see if there is a black hole? Only I would very much like nobody to move or get up. Those who are not sure of being to remain here, I request them to go away immediately. If they are, they should meditate. They should not disturb anyone. And then Mother starts meditating. These are the divine words of our Divine Mother.